Neil has graciously volunteered to do the welcoming protocol this morning.
Hello, my uncle. I made the mistake of asking at breakfast, who's gonna do it, and he said, oh, forgot, it must be you. So careful about asking a question, not prepared for the answer. But I'm pleased to do it, and I greet all of you, and those of you who are familiar to the vast repertoire of Puli that Noinoi has, not gonna get that from me. Although I do appreciate that protocol. But between our last meeting that we had when we were dealing with the NSF decision-making about the loss of funds to our observatory community, the beautiful meeting we had last night in Ka'u with community to talk about our strategic framework, and kind of a line I saw in the IFA deck that's here, it all pointed me to some work I've been reading by the New York Times columnist David Brooks, who talks about localism or the localist revolution. And he had a favorite quote that I picked up on that said, localism is the belief that power should be wielded as much as possible at the neighborhood, city, and state levels. Success is not measured by how big you can scale, but by how deeply you can connect. Change in a localist world often looks like a renewal of old forms, which were often more intimate and personalistic than the technocratic structures of the past 50 years. Instead, it brings conservatives and liberals together around the thought that people are happiest when their lives are enmeshed in caring, face-to-face relationships, building their communities together. That speaks to me about the charge that we have here at the Authority and face every day, and it's being enlivened in our interactions with these community meetings that we've launched, and I just enjoy seeing our community come together around a love for of Hawaiʻi, a love for our mauna, and a desire that we have all the opportunities so that we can thrive here. So yeah, I share that with you. Mahalo for giving me the opportunity.
Great. That's very good. So we'll talk a little bit more about last night's meeting further on, because it was a great meeting, great atmosphere. Can I get confirmation for those on Zoom that you're alone in your room? Thank you. With that, we don't have any public comments on agenda items, so we'll move to the approval of minutes. Are there any proposed amendments to either the June 12th, 2025 or the July 10th, 2025 minutes? If not, if I could get a motion to approve the minutes.
I so move, but do we have to approve it one at a time, or just can we do this?
Linda, can we do this together, just 1 minute?
Yeah, I think you can do it together.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I move that we adopt the minutes of June 12th and July 10th, 2025 as written.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried, thank you. For the chair's report, basically what I'm going to do is, a few months ago, we asked Authority Map. Let me just start by saying that we're trying to change the nomenclature of how we refer to ourselves. The Act 255 does not refer to a board of directors, and we have been calling ourselves board members, directors. We're trying to change the nomenclature to refer to ourselves as authority members, which is basically tracks the statute. So as we go forward, it's kind of a learning process, and some of us old dogs take a little bit longer to learn, but we're trying. But having said that, the reason I want to say that is that in my chair's report, we had asked authority member Horner to head a group, including member Pomai and member Ryan, to start our discussion about an evaluation, performance evaluation process for our executive director. When we hired the executive director, we represented that we as a board would review him on a annual basis. So what we did is we formed a PIG, and the PIG has a report. Unfortunately, as per the sunshine rules, no one can ask any questions or have any discussion, but I'm gonna ask Authority Member Horner to provide a report on what his PIG conducted and did.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure my volume is up. The purpose of this PIG was to recommend a process and criteria for conducting annual performance evaluations for the MKSOA executive director, and it's gonna outline the PIG's recommendations for the evaluation framework, including the state's performance appraisal system and 360-degree feedback process. And the things we needed to do while we're developing this was to review the state of Hawaii exempt administrator performance appraisal system used by DLNR. And I have to pay great respect to Alice Schutte and Marissa Odo from the HR department at DLNR. They really helped us out and made it a lot easier for us to get started. So that was the first thing we did. And then number two, we developed and confirmed performance goals for those forms for both the immediate, partial, annual, and then the annual cycle following next. So, and then we developed a 360-degree feedback model. The partial annual period is actually from October 3rd, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. And the following goals have already been developed and agreed upon for that period. And the goals are hire core MKSOA staff to establish organizational capacity. Number two is secure permanent office site for MKSOA, and I know that's a challenge. And initiate the community engagement sessions island-wide, which started out really good, so you're already in that process. After this, June 30th, obviously, that's all completed. So that'll be the first performance appraisal. The next annual period is July 1, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. And the different goals, some different goals have already been developed for that time frame as well, including filling 90% of the MKSOA positions available, operationalize permanent MKSOA office site, and complete the community engagement sessions and integrate findings into the MKSOA plans and priorities. And the board should designate an evaluation committee distinct from this PIG to complete the partial the PAS, or the partial annual evaluation, and later oversee the full annual evaluations, excuse me. So the key part of that is that we should have members from our board and other places, because the PIG is not going to develop or actually be the ones evaluating the executive director. The second thing that's really important too, we think, is that they need a 360-degree evaluation. First thing I would say, the internal MKSOA staff has to be a part of it. External partners from the University of Hawaii and DLNR should be a part of it. And the last thing was the members of the MKSOA board. The supplemental evaluation can be conducted through surveys or structured interviews It should be overseen by the same evaluation committee appointed by the board. 360 would be timed to align with the formal PAS cycles, performance evaluation cycles, but results would be used solely to inform discussion and development, not the official rating. And then the last thing we have is like the recommended board actions. The PIG kind of recommends that the board take the following steps. Formally adopt the combined performance appraisal system and the 360 degree evaluation approach. Appoint separate evaluation, a separate evaluation committee to administer and complete the partial annual evaluation, to oversee and synthesize a 360 degree evaluation process, and conduct the feedback session with the executive director. The last thing would be to retain full board authority to review and approve the final PAS and feedback delivery. So that's kind of like the whole picture. And I have to say, mahalo nui to Ryan, because Ryan really he worked with the HR department in DLNR and got everything laid out and made it so much simpler for us during the process, so that we feel like our process we fulfilled our purpose of recommending the evaluation structure for the executive director, and we respectfully submit this framework to the board for adoption. PIG does not carry out the evaluation itself, and the evaluation committee should be designated by the board to implement the process outlined above. So mahalo to Pumai and Ryan, and I'm going to send in a nice email for Alish and Marissa Odo. I think I did already, actually. You guys have any questions?
Oh, you cannot ask questions.
Okay, so I'm not going to let anybody ask any questions.
Let me ask other members of the committee if they have anything they wanted to add, Ryan and or Pumai. John. Oh, sorry.
I have nothing to add. You know, Paul encapsulated, you know, everything, the work and the recommendation.
Thank you.
What I would add is just that Ryan and authority member Paul Horner were just excellent in being able to navigate this process, and just really grateful to them for their experience and for being great leaders and willing to teach. So mahalo nui.
Thank you. So we're not going to have the opportunity to discuss this, but at the next meeting, we'll be placing their recommendation on the agenda. So I need everybody to think about whether or not they think that this is an appropriate process. Since June 30th, 2025 has passed, I don't think we should relook at the goals, but I need you to start thinking about what the goals should be for this upcoming year, starting July 1st, 2025 to June 30th. I need you to think about whether there should be additions or objections to the people that we're talking to in terms of the 360. Should there be additional people, or do you think that certain people that have been recommended should be taken off? And I'll have a recommendation to all of you. If, assuming we approve this process, who the evaluation committee will be, but that will all be taken up in our next meeting. Okay, so thank you, everybody.
Chair, could clarify?
Yeah.
If the thoughts on that will be voiced at the next
At the
meeting, or
next
should we share it before the meeting? I mean,
I'm trying to navigate through sunshine. You can tell me. No, really. I mean,
Okay. So if you have thoughts about it,
Yeah.
share them with you.
sure. Or I think a better process is generally I would ask the executive director, but this is a process about him, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, please share your thoughts with me, and we'll try to figure out how to share the thoughts with everyone else.
Master of sunshine.
Don't get me started. Meeting's going pretty well so far. All right, so thank you again, to the pig, and thanks to, Member Horner. Governance, there's nothing to talk about governance. Move to administration, there's a whole lot to report to all of you regarding administration. So I turn it over to Executive Director DeFries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the PIG, who is looking at the Executive Director's review. I take that seriously and look forward to going through the review. Let me start today by asking Bill Stormont to give an update on the interim office. Bill?
Thank you, John. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the authority. Happy to report we have an office at 688 Kinoole Suite 212. It doesn't have electricity yet, but we do have, or furniture, but we have a space, and
Keys.
we're actually beginning to look for more. And are appreciative to member Noinoy Wong Wilson joining us earlier this week for a short, simple but meaningful blessing of the space for our good work to begin there. And happy to report that as we began, we looked out the window and there was a EO flying above us. A wonderful Hawaiʻi lono. So anyway, we have a space. Thanks very much.
Any questions about the office? Any donations on furniture?
Or if you got extra electricity, we can.
Yeah. Portable ACs, whatever.
If next month there's no furniture in this room, you'll know. You'll know why. Moving on to item A2, the community talk story session got re-energized last evening with our meeting in Naalehu. And this might be an appropriate time, Mr. Chair, for those who participated, especially those on the board, to share their observations about the meeting.
You gotta come hang out with me then.
Lanakila. Hey, Lanakila. So I can start. Last night. Hey. Anyway, it was a small group from the community, but really important people that were there. It was an intimate discussion and a really good discussion. I think most of the time the authority members sort of sat in the second outside circle and just allowed our facilitator Mahina Paishan to work with the people who were there. People came actually not just from Naalehu, but some from other parts of the island. And we had a number of people online, right? But right at this time, it doesn't seem that we can identify who our online audience is, right? I'm a little curious about that, how that can work for the future. Because then we have no way of following up with them, but you know, they were invited to make comments, and the online people, I don't think there were any comments that were made at the time, but I think I heard a little bit new information and feedback that I've heard since we started this process, so it was pretty good.
Rich.
Just wanted to mention that I appreciated the process. One of the things is being very transparent about who is in the room on behalf of the authority, whether it's authority members, staff members, or supporters or advisors. And I thought that that's a really good step to identify who's there. So that the community has full transparency about who's there and for what function and what purpose, and I think that's important to building trust. So I thought, I think that was a really good step that we did yesterday on So good facilitation there. And I thought that the tenor of the discussion was very genuine and open. And I thought, Chair, with your opening comments about we're really here to share what we're doing, but mostly to listen to the community and get the input that we got that because of those, it's being facilitated well. So I was super happy to be there and hear from the community.
Thank you. Neil?
Well, I want to build on that. Number one, I think, we've got a good team handling the setup and facilitation. Mahina does a good job. The hackbed folks are taking thorough notes of these meetings. The audio, the logistical crew went well, because these things can, get you going on a bad footing if you don't start well. And so they set the stage for really productive meetings. So I want to commend the team. Our strategic framework, the 2 meetings, is playing very well. People read it, and there's a lot of resonance there, kind of across the communities, the diversity of stakeholders. And the third thing I'd commend is don't undervalue the intelligence of our community. They're insightful. They can already see in the glory and of the lofty words of a strategic framework, what's your decision tree going to be? How are you going to make sure you implement this? What is that process so that you can bring this into regulatory form in a consistent and transparent way? Really astute comments. And so I always enjoy being uplifted by their intelligence. If I make one recommendation, I would look at how are we promoting these? We're running around putting posters up, we have certain announcements on our website and so forth, but I think they're valuable sessions to us, and I think they're valuable to the community as well, so let's make sure people know about it and have every opportunity to participate.
Before I turn it back to Executive Director DeFries for his comments, I would just echo everything that was said and just add that people are really appreciative that we're coming out to their community to ask them about their feelings and their thoughts. I mean, truly appreciative, and are making, as everyone said, very good suggestions and providing us good manao. So with that, I turn it back to Executive for his comments.
Yes, last evening, while the numbers were not grand, I thought the content of the conversation was extremely meaningful. Chancellor Irwin, 2 University of Hawaiʻi Hilo alum were there who hold master's degrees in heritage management. And in a conversation I had with one of them, it took me back to 2016 New York when Hokulea got to the United Nations, and the day before there was a protocol in the harbor on the pier where the exchange was between the crew of Hokulea and the indigenous people of that part of New York. And that was a discipline and a protocol that was consistently used every time they entered port somewhere. And I remember being in a conversation where one of the constant recurring themes was indigenous people being surprised by the fact that somebody was asking permission to enter, to step onto their aina. And it resonated last night because on the way out, one of the participants said to me that the sensation he had at the discussion table around the strategic framework for him felt like the beginning of generational healing. When we think about aspirational statements that we will see and identify, I thought that was a very powerful observation, that the small steps we're taking at this stage to engage the community can be translated in that way. And then now what that statement did was it just heightened the bar? What do you do with it once people start to feel that way? So I'm glad that we are basically going through a sprint over the next 6 weeks to make sure that we get these community voices heard. They were also told that their input collectively from each of the meetings that we take will then be looked at for themes or priorities that recur throughout the different districts on the island. And then that will circle back and begin to inform the board on how to bring this document into final form, which then becomes the cornerstone to the master planning effort, the management planning effort that we're about to embark upon. So that's Naalehu. The next meeting is in Kona on the 27th of August. It'll take place in the County Council chambers in the West Hawaii Civic Center at 5 p.m. On the list, on the agenda, you see Hamakua is on the 3rd in Laupahoehoe. The Waimea date last evening had to change because of some staffing and logistical challenges that had emerged. So it's being moved a night later to the 18th, September 18th. And the location is pending at this moment. The purpose of going back to Waimea, for those of you that were in Waimea in April for the first meeting, was that our meeting competed with a DHHL, Hawaiian Homeland's major meeting that they had. And so we are basically taking it back as an encore talk story that would enable those that were not at our meeting, primarily from Hawaiian Homes. And today, HACMED is evaluating whether the center at Hawaiian Homes might be a better venue. So we will keep you informed, but the date has moved to September 18, and then Hilo on the 24th of September. Any questions about the community meetings?
John, I have a suggestion for getting the word out.
Please.
Hawaii Public Radio now has a community calendar. And so you can submit events to that, and then they even talk about some of them on air. So that would be one. And then while I was thinking about HPR, I was thinking there may be other radio stations that do like public service community events that we might tap into depending on where we are, because there are still people who listen to the radio.
I think it just underscores our authorities need to make sure we get a communications staff person or communication function in place. That would be helpful.
Okay, appreciate that feedback. Any other thoughts, comments?
Just one last thing I forgot to mention. At the beginning of our meeting, we did have some protocol that where we, Mahina and I, Oli, and then Ulumakua Kane, one of the Kumaina to that place, one of the residents and longtime family members of Makua Kanes, greeted us and greeted the authorities. So, that was really beautiful to have that, and I know that we will continue doing that when we go to visit the different communities.
Thank you. Okay, well,
Can I
please.
I just want to mahalo everybody for attending in person there. I went through this was on my schedule for like months because I wanted to go back home. And I got called away last minute to Kauai. And logistically it was just impossible to get there in time. So thank you everybody for being able to go there and show face. I was watching the video, I was happy to see my cousin Ulu was doing the Olikoma for you folks and everything. yeah, just thank you and my apologies.
Thank you. Okay, item 6B, status of our long-term transition working group. I'll turn it over to member Ben Kudo.
Hey, we had our last meeting on July 18th. And we went through tranche 4 documents, and these are historical records and other types of miscellaneous types of files. We finished them at that meeting. So we started up with the last tranche, which is a contingent file. This is the CDUAs because we don't yet have the AG opinion, which we're waiting for and have been waiting for several months. But we decided to go through them anyway. So basically, we finished all the file reviews and analysis that was part of the University of Hawaii's inventory, and we're now looking at the last contingent one, which is the CDUAs. We will proceed to this next Friday, 22nd, I believe, is our next meeting, and we will continue with the CDUAs. I have to talk with our consultant as to whether they have finished the review of all the CDUA permits. There's quite a number of them, CDUA permits. After that is completed, we will finish up, wrap up, and start the drafting of the master transfer plan. And this is the plan that will draft form will go to the Board of Regents and our board for comment, review, and for approval by both boards. At our meeting, we also had a presentation by Greg Chun with regard to a recent OSHA inspection and their desire to have emergency plans, safety plans from CMS. CMS is expected to produce those plans. And then also, he also talked about the sublease termination agreement with Caltech. They are apparently awaiting Caltech's signature to finalize that termination. The last was he gave a briefing on the National Science Foundation budget cuts to the university and how it will impact CMS. CMS will probably feel the impact. It was projected by May of next year. So part of the mitigation is to look at expenses that may need to be cut at CMS, which is relevant to our staff and our role to take over a lot of the CMS roles, is to cut back on some of those type of administrative functions and services in order to meet budget. That was the conclusion of our meeting. So our next meeting is August 22nd, and I'll report after that. I can entertain any questions if there are any.
Hearing no questions, thank you, Ben.
Hey.
Exceptional work done by you and the entire team that has been brought together, so thank you. Moving to item C, I'm going to ask both Bill Stormont and member Ryan Kanakaole to comment. So Ryan, would you like to start?
Sorry, we're on item D.
D, C. Your visit to the Mauna.
So we when was it? Was it there's been a blur. So on the 29th, so I think for DLNR we had a large Hawaii Island site visit. We had our teams from the Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands, the key planners that actually oversee the conservation district use permits, including the administrator, join us. as well as the office of the chair, primarily to go and see sites and work out in Kohala as well as in Hilo, but our main focus was also on Mauna Kea. We stopped over, and this was the day of the tsunami. So about 3 p.m. we started getting calls from governor's office that our natural culture resource emergency response roles were activated, and we were being told to go into Hilo, but the decision was made that Mauna Kea is probably the safest place to be. And so we went, and graciously, Greg Chun folks opened up their offices for us. We connected, and we were able to engage in our hourly meetings for the tsunami protocols and just the response and mobilization. That aside, so I missed out on going up to the summit. I was down at the Halepohaku on my calls, but the rest of the team was able to go up. They were able to engage with Greg Chun folks and Mahua, just up there. I forget which observatory they were in. Yeah, but they were there for sunset, and they came back down. We were able to have a good discussion the next morning. Basically, so we were, and I don't know when it was rescheduled to, but we were MKSOA, DLNR, and UH were intended to present to the Ways and Means Committee sometime, I think, at the end of this month, at the 26th. And so there was our team was doing our side, preparing for explaining to WAM what our role was at DLNR at this current time in the transition period, and then also post transition period. And then same thing with Greg Folks as well as Bill and team, and so we were able to get a preview of that presentation at Halepohaku. It was really good. I think it was the presentation, for me, as being a board member, it was good to hear, and also for the staff, particularly the OCCL staff in our office, to learn about what is going on there, as well as just to be on the ground, because we got new planners come in, and they were able to actually see what they're regulating, and we're able to have a good discussion with both authority members or authority staff, and also the UH staff as well on the current and future projects. So it was just good to have that connection with everybody and actually, shake hands with people and talk. So.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask Bill Stormont, who was reconnected with a number of his old colleagues at DLNR. Bill?
Thanks, John. And thank you, Ryan, for that recap. Yeah, it was kind of an exciting night, but we were safe. I think the following morning when we had the conversation that Brian referenced, the consistent themes seems to be surfacing, and we know these. The situation of the land tenure situation come July 1, 28, the conservation district use permits, the new leases with the observatory. So those are central to the conversations we had that morning, and it was important to have those in person with the people in the room, with the chair, with Michael Kane at OCCL and his staff, as you mentioned, many who were new. And it's helpful always to have those face-to-face conversations. So one of the takeaways was that I think everybody left there with a better understanding of what our current needs are and our concerns are, and the timing of such is becoming increasingly critical as the days go by. And the other takeaway I've shared is that it became clear that we need to create a enhanced mechanism for interacting with the chair's office, so that she and folks there at that level are aware of what's going on with the authority, as we try to come up with solutions to these quandaries that we have with regard to the vagueness that exists in 255. And that's going to be coupled with the next subject, which is a conversation with legislators. And that was also central to the conversation we had earlier this week in that visit. But those are my takeaways, and always very positive and very enlightening. And again, on the ground, face to face, is really where you have some very meaningful conversations and discussions about these things, relationships. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I have one as far as the takeaways go. So the observatory folks came in the morning, and it was actually good to hear their perspective on what their concerns were in the transition period as well as the post-transition period, whether it's in regard to like the state of their subleases, what happens to those, or the state of the CDUPs, and who's going to be taking responsibility for those compliance with those terms and conditions. And that is something that we have to take back, and we're going to be working with Bill folks on really like what should happen, what's intended to happen, where the gaps are in the law right now. So that was a good thing.
Thank you. Any questions on the visit by DLNR and OCCL? Okay, if not, we'll move to the next item, which seems like a month ago, but it was only Monday here. We met our 2 board member limit in the form of John Komeiji and Rich Matsuda. But I want to go back to Bill Stormont, who was really the point person for the authority in communicating with Vice Speaker Linda Ichiyama in putting this visit, the logistics of this visit, the schedule and all of that together. Bill?
Thanks, John. Linda Ichiyama, Vice Speaker Ichiyama and I began speaking several months ago about a site visit to Mauna Kea from members of the House. She and I had worked together in the past when she was chair of the Water and Land Committee. And so that was more of a committee-centered visits. This one was house-wide. There were 10 members of the legislature that joined us overnight on Monday at Halepohaku, including Vice Speaker, Chair Mark Hashem of Water and Land, and his Vice Chair, Rochelle Lamusau. Several Hawaiian members of the House, Matisse Kush, Sue Kio Kapu Liloi, Kirsten Kahaloa, and Jeannie Capella, and several others. The goal, and I wanted to pull that up, I had it here, and let me very quickly read through the goals that Linda and I crafted, primarily her. Gain a full understanding of the current UH Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship's day-to-day operations on the Mauna Kea lands. Gain further knowledge of and appreciation for the natural and cultural resources of Mauna Kea. Understand the future planned organizational structure of the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority, and how MKSOA is currently working with CMS through this MKSOA CMS Joint Management Committee. And understand the extent and content of future funding requests beyond the current recurring operating funds, to include any additional positions, potential CA requests, and so forth. And so over the course of the 2 days, we had sit-down sessions, and thanks to Greg Chun for his updates and laying out the situation with the current funding matters and their organizational structure, and how the Joint Management Committee is been compiled and how we're working together, meeting with them bi-monthly to talk through upcoming projects and other matters that pertain to both of us across the board in caring for the Mauna. That was followed, that afternoon we did the sit-down session. We had a walkthrough of some of the facilities so they could get a better understanding of the utilities department, food and lodging, and so forth, some of the activities that are ongoing up there in stewarding the mountain now. The following morning, most of the group embarked on a hike down to Lake Waiau. We were joined by members of the Ranger Corps. We were joined by DLNR staff, Nick Agarastis, the manager of the Natural Area Reserves Program, and other CMS staff. 2 of the group did a site visit to Gemini to look at their machine shop and the mirror coating lab and the telescope itself. And then they actually followed us down, and so all 10 of the visiting members got to walk down the lake to Lake Waiau and see the lake, which was really quite remarkable. And it was a beautiful day. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention also that on Monday evening, Rich Matsuda, member Matsuda, had afforded us an opportunity to visit Keck with the group. So we got the summit sunset at the Keck Observatory. Weather precluded the full bells and whistles tour, where they couldn't open the dome itself, but we did see some of the operations and actually got to have a conversation with one of the research scientists who was online in the control room talking about the work that they had planned to do that evening and what they were doing. So all in all, quite a robust couple of days. And John K, if you want to add to that about the trip, as you were there with us.
Well, this morning we got an email from Vice Speaker Ichiyama thanking us, but she said that many of the members, that this was very eye-opening to them and very educational and almost life-changing for some people when they viewed Lake Waiau. I think our goal was meant to kind of educate them and explain some of the issues that we're facing. Overall, it seemed that they were very supportive of how we were proceeding, and we're looking for ways to assist us in the next session.
Thank you. Before I go to Rich Matsuda, I want to ask, we have Greg Chung today by audio only, and typically Greg would be in this room with us, but today he's joining us by audio. Greg, any manao you would like to share about the visit by the State House?
Sure. Thanks, John, and aloha, everyone. I hope it's okay. I'm keeping my camera off. I had a little accident shaving this morning, so I've got to keep the area covered right now. No, I thought the both visits, both with DLNR and with the House delegation, were not just well received, but I think they were worthwhile on our side as well, because it's important for all of us, MKSOA and CMS, to maintain those communications and relationships and build the understanding with the folks making the policy decisions that affect us. It's important that we maintain those relationships and keep them active and open. I think they had everybody not only experienced Mauna Kea in all of his glory, but I think the other thing is they had a chance to see for themselves some of the challenges ahead of us, because they got a better understanding of exactly what is involved totally in the management of Mauna Kea. And I think that provides a better context for them as they consider changes to the law that may be necessary. So thanks, John. I thought it was a very good two site visits all the way around.
Thanks, Greg. Rich?
I don't have much to add. I'll just say I think because the observatories are on public land, that it's important for decision makers to understand as much about the activities that are happening in these observatories as possible. So we're very happy to share, and had several staff members there supporting the visit and asked them to explain their different parts of what they do to just build a depth of understanding. It's one thing for the leader to explain, but it's better for the people actually doing the work to show and explain what they do. So we just tried to do that to share as much as possible. So it was great to have them come visit.
Super, thank you. The only thing I'll add is in the final hour before they departed to Mauna, we gathered for a debriefing, at which time each visiting elected official of the House had an opportunity to share their manao as they were preparing to leave the mountain. And, you know, it was clear that it had been a major learning curve fulfilled for them in being able to get a more detailed understanding about existing operations, the transition and the move to full management responsibility, July 1, 2028. Take all that away and put that on the side for a moment. I thought the most compelling thing is you could see that they each made a personal connection with Mauna Kea. And that is so important, that that personal connection. This is not CMS's kuleana, it's not the Mauna Kea Authority's kuleana, this is our collective kuleana. And to get to that awareness requires that each one become connected and feel connected, and in that connection, feel responsible to care for our Mauna. So to that end, I thought Vice Speaker Ichiyama, Water and Land Chair Hashem, and everybody that was in that delegation left differently than they would have, than the state they arrived in. So really glad we did that. And frankly, every elected official or everybody that has anything to do with Mauna Kea would benefit from having that personal time, especially when we're overnighting and the agenda is filled. We didn't get back to Halepohaku till probably about 8:45 that first evening. So thanks to everyone. Any questions about the house visit?
Just to let you know, so that we wouldn't be topped by the DLNR people, we had the fire in the Mauna to match your tidal wave.
That's right.
So, tsunami and fire in the hole. So it's like, okay, moving to item E, there's a meeting today that myself, Chair Komeiji, and Chris Daggett will be attending with the leadership of each of these chambers. And John, you want to comment on that?
No, there's been concerns raised in various meetings about renewal of leases. So I think that spurred some discussion. So we, again, communicating with everyone is important to us from all facets of the community. So we intend to kind of let them know what we're doing, sort of lay, I guess, like a timetable and what our thoughts are about the leases. So we look forward to having that discussion with all of them, and again, increasing communication with the various segments of our community.
The only thing I'll add is you'll recall a month ago on the date of this authorities meeting, I was not in attendance as I was called to a meeting of the Konakohala Chamber of Commerce Board where Governor Green appeared. And it was at that board meeting that a letter signed by each of these chambers, with the exception of the Native Hawaiian Chamber, the rest of them co-signed a letter expressing concern about the leases and asking the governor to focus on that and help in any way, help the authority in any way, and help the process in any way. So this is kind of the next step in that meeting, and I'm thankful to Kaiu Kimura, who currently, I believe, chairs the Japanese Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Hawaii. So we'll be at those headquarters later this afternoon. Any questions about that item?
John, if I might.
Yes.
As I've discussed with you, and I might be able to actually make some of those.
Okay.
Is to encourage their participation in our community meetings. as well as in our meetings here, so that their views can be kind of incorporated side by side with the views of other stakeholders in our community, so we can balance these issues. That if they participate in the process outside of the authority, then it's not as transparent, and that's what helps. Those kinds of actions and tactics really are what create trust issues that we're trying to the compromise to the trust that we're trying to restore by having a transparent, consistent process. And eliciting their comments on the strategic framework is a good start point, and because they can see what's coming.
Very good point. And I'm glad that you'll be able to join us for that meeting this afternoon. It'll be a virtual meeting, but a timely one. Any other comments on item E?
I just
Item
want
F.
to.
Oh, excuse me. Yes.
I just wanted to echo support what Uncle Neil just said there. I think that's very important, just for that transparency, and as well as to be able to call our staff to their own meetings, kind of at a whim like that, just creates those trust issues again too. So I really want to just echo to that. That's very important that we make sure, like we offer all these platforms for communication for our community, and if they're, it'd be very prudent for them to come to these gatherings and share that. And if our staff are being pulled to their meetings, that already just creates that trust issue seen by the community. So I really want to echo to what Uncle Neil was saying there.
Thank you, Lanakila. Really important. I will say too that the governor acted upon the letter by convening a meeting. In attendance, myself, Greg Chun, Doug Simons, and Vasilis Sirmos, representing President Hensel from the University of Hawaii. It was a productive meeting in terms of getting the governor updated on critical issues, timing, timetable, and also what not to do. So he has asked for us to reconvene in 2 months, 60 days. So in about 6 weeks, we'll be back providing him updates relative to this issue. And he was also kind of informed about the development of the management plan, the need for community engagement, the role of the authority in terms of being able to establish priorities like carrying capacity and all of that. And so we are engaged in a elaborate and very intentional process at the community level, and just allow us to move forward on that. And he was very supportive, A, of the astronomy industry, B, of the University of Hawaii, and very supportive of the authority. And happy to know that we're moving forward in a cooperative and collaborative way. Item E, any other comments? Item F, on Monday of this week, we received notice that the site visit by the Ways and Means Committee of the Senate, it was canceled and subject to being rescheduled. No definite date for the reschedule has been arrived at as yet.
John, can I go back to the previous?
Yes, please.
I do want to make a comment, and I think, Lanakila is kind of reflecting on what you said, and so I just want to say this out loud, that we the authority, know that we have set up a purposeful process, which includes our outreach to community, which is vital and critical to our success. And then the next piece, item G, which we'll get an update on, bringing in the consultants and the expertise that we need, the extra bodies, hands, feet, and brains that we need to have this enormous hulihia um, shift in the way, you know, we malama Mauna Kea, right? And to meet all of the legal expectations and the cultural and the community expectations of what we are holding in order to get our work done. So, you know, I think the message that we do really want to get across to everybody is there is a plan and it is in process, and it includes at the proper time and place addressing such vital important issues like the lease agreements and the carrying capacity and the issues of public access on Mauna Kea. So, you know, it's not just astronomy. There are a lot of really important issues that we as a body have to address along with our community. So I appreciate the work that our leadership and you, John, and the administrative side does to make sure that the community, including the chambers, understand that and ask for their support, as opposed to trying to shortcut any process for the benefit, you know, just a portion of what we have to get done. So I just want to say that.
Thank you, thank you. Well said, thank you. Again, item F, just to reiterate, that meeting has been postponed. I was conflicted about that because anytime we can get them on the island, it's good. If we can get them to Mauna Kea, it's great. But we look forward to hearing from them about a future date being set on the Senate side. Item G, as you know, we've been in the midst of an RCUH procurement for consulting services to develop a management plan. I'm going to turn over to Lloyd an update on that procurement and award.
Good morning and thank you very much. First of all, we had two very credible offers, which I'd like to thank both of the companies that wanted to assist MKSOA in having a management plan. Secondly, we had an evaluation committee of 5, and I want to express my appreciation for them that they took the time to look at both offers and scored them. And after we did the scoring, it took time to come up with a contract that was acceptable with RCOH, MKSOA, and the company, which is SSFM. Okay, so that's the company that was awarded the contract. They did score higher than the other contractor. I'd like to also thank the people at RCOH, Jennifer Chang, Yuriko Lin, and Aaron Yoda worked on developing the RFP, formatting the contract, working with SSFM, with April and her staff to finalize the final agreement that was dated August the 5th, 2025. With that in mind, we also the staff worked out that we needed someone to manage this new consultant, and we worked with we do have a consultant on board. It's called Paid Lunch, and through them we would be hiring, or they will work together with Bill Moore. So we have acquired his services, and tomorrow will be our first meeting with SSFM, staff to introduce ourselves and to see what what our next steps will be. So that's where we are on our new consultant contractor.
Thank you, Lloyd. Let me add to, as Lloyd said, we have our kickoff meeting tomorrow. But specifically, in the next few days, you're going to hear, we will issue a public release on this. We didn't want to do it before the board meeting. It will identify that the award went to the planning firm of SSFM, who was the offerer of record. So our initial public announcement will be restricted to the award going to that firm. But I do want to expand on the planning team, because SSFM, the contract was signed by Michael Matsumoto, the CEO of SSFM. It was signed by me on behalf of the authority and by Leonard Gouveia on behalf of RCUH, Research Corporation of UH. And so that becomes public record. The proposals become public record. The contract becomes public record. What we will do is get those documents to you for your personal review and file as well. What SSFM did was it went out and created a planning team because of the strong emphasis in the RFP on community engagement, Hawaiian cultural practices, protocols, and such. So I wanted to identify members of that team. In addition to SSFM, Michael Matsumoto, CEO, April Supernon, who is based here in Hilo, who will head the planning team. Also joining SSFM is the firm of DTL, headed by Malia Kaihui. Also joined by the Edith Kanakaole Foundation on this engagement, led by Hui Kanahele Mossman. Mahina Paishan Consulting is also part of the planning team. As you know, HACMed retained the services of Mahina to facilitate our series of community meetings. So Mahina will be transitioning into this planning team in the months ahead. Also, Konane Law, led by Mahina Tatur. Ho'opili Ho Research Group, led by Kamuela Plunkett, and Aina Archaeology, led by Tanya Lee Gregg. As Lloyd pointed out, we have retained the services of Bill Moore to be the contract manager, project manager. Lloyd has brought it through procurement, and now that that award has been made, the direct oversight of the process now moves to me as the principal investigator, and the services of Bill Moore as project manager and contract manager. Bill is a well-known entity here in Hilo in particular, where he had his own planning and design firm, previously worked with the county planning department, served for many years as a civilian aide to the U.S. Army, was part of the Saddle Road Task Force, involved in a number of nonprofits here in Hilo. Bill retired, so he believes that his wife will choke my neck for bringing him out of retirement. But as Chair Komeiji said, I gotta take one for the team. But we're glad to have Bill joining us as early as tomorrow's kickoff meeting. So I'll leave it there. Any questions about the award or the contract?
John,
Yes.
Number one, I appreciate the opportunity to serve on the review team, and we all know this is really important. So it was important to really make sure we felt we had a consultant who understood the gravity and the breadth of the assignment, and have the right team in place to effectively fulfill it. It's as we launch, one of the critical things is, for something that's going to be complex and take many months, is to have a level setting of our expectations. What's going to happen when, and what do you need of us? Knowing what they propose and knowing now that you have Bill on board, my hope is that we will see very soon kind of the whole plan to get from beginning to the end, and where we'll have, what the key milestones are that need board review, authority review, and decision making. So as we see that, we can all know what to expect as authority members, and know that, man, it's really critical for us to be in at that authority meeting and weigh in on that issue, because it's critical to the continued progress of the plan, and we have a tight schedule, that then presses up against the lease renewals and all these other decisions that we have to make. So we want to make sure that we handle it sufficiently. So I'm expecting that's going to come in after your launch meeting tomorrow.
So let me say that's my expectation that management, following that initial meeting and whatever follow-up meetings they have, was going to give all of you and all of us a update and cover the areas that Neil just mentioned. So one of the things I wanted to tell you is that, we gotta let management do their job, right? So, for example, the contractor should not be hearing from 4 of you or 3 of you about what you expect to do. Everything should go through our management. If you have concerns, go through John DeFries and have him communicate your concerns or whatever. Because projects usually fail when you get too many people communicating about what has to be done. Second thing is that, in this meeting that we have a report from John and his team, you're gonna hear, because I see it already in the documents, that all of you are gonna have to be involved at various phases. So we need you guys, because of the tight schedule, once we commit to this schedule and you're called upon to review documents, what have you, be interviewed, etc., you have to follow up and make yourself available on a timely basis, because we cannot have this process held up by us as authority members. So please, kind of commit to being part of this process.
No.
Mike up there. Mike.
Mike,
I have a question, John. As far as your expectation for the completion of the management plan?
Hold on, Mike.
Point of order, sorry.
We'll get to you, Mike.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think when we get to public comments, then that would be more appropriate for Mike to make a comment.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any other comment about this subject? Mike, we'll make sure to get back to you, because I do want to hear that. And then, Noi was also, the identities of the evaluation committee, now that the award has been made, become public as well. So that evaluation committee consisted of Neil Hannes, Noi Wong Wilson, Lloyd Unibasami, Bill Stormont, and Nahua Rios from Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship. Noi, I don't know if you have anything to add about that process that could enlighten our board.
No, I think everything's been said, thank you, but it was a good process, and a lot of consideration went into the determination. So we're quite happy with the result.
Okay.
I look forward to it.
I will tell you, the process calls for the evaluation committee to arrive at a recommendation. That recommendation comes to me in the procurement as the principal investigator, all these technical names, but to remain consistent, as the principal investigator, I had the opportunity to review their recommendation and both proposals. Um, I upheld their recommendation because they were clear and concise, and I understood how they got to the conclusion they got to. What I will tell you about both of these proposals is they were a substantial leap from the proposal received earlier in the procurement that was canceled. And while it cost us several months in time, the depth and the quality of this particular, both proposals, I will say, but the one that received the award, in my opinion, was worth the wait. And we will do everything to continue to accelerate going through it. Okay. Item G,
You're just fine. Mike.
okay. Mike,
Just a quick question, John. I know the previous presentation you made regarding the timeline called for the management plan to be completed by first quarter 2027. Is that still the goal?
it is, it was, we are looking for a fourth quarter 2026 completion. So it really is a 14-month planning process, and we've received every indication from SSFM that the timeline that was put forth is still in play. And then we'll report on it every month. You're gonna hear on this.
Well, let us know if we can help at all.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other comment, question? Cool, before we leave that, what SSMM, let me just add, so that we're all technically in sync, SSFM was the award, the offer of record. What they did was, in submitting their proposal, they took the two lead partners, DTL and the Edith Kanakaole Foundation, and as a triumvirate, if you will, submitted the proposal under the name of Kua o Wakea. And in their opening statement, let me read this. Kua o Wakea is a name steeped in ancestral memory, celestial alignment, and deep cultural significance. Translated as the, quote, the back of Wakea, end quote, it invokes imagery of a ridge, mountain, or axis linked to the sky father, Wakea, and a kua, and progenitor figure in Hawaiian cosmology. Other interpretations include Wakea's mountain, the celestial equator, or the space of Wakea, all of which reflect layered meanings across genealogy, navigation, and spiritual geography. Kua o Wakea appears repeatedly in traditional Hawaiian texts, chants, and oral histories, affirming its cultural and spiritual significance. So while the recipient of the award is SSFM, Kua o Wakea is the name of the collective of all of the key consultants and supporting subcontractors. So the updates will be coming from that collective as we move forward. Thank you. Okay, Lloyd, you're up on item 7, finance.
Thank you very much. This is the start of the new fiscal period that's going to end June 30th, 2026. We went in with a recurring budget to the legislature. What that means is we stayed with the same amount of the prior years. So we went in with a $14 million request, which were granted for the fiscal years 26 and 27. During the process, we went in to get 7 more temporary positions in case we needed to do a transition sooner than June 30th, 2028, which the legislature also allowed us 7 additional positions. So now we have 13 temporary full-time positions available for our use. Of note, we're using last year's fiscal amounts. You know, the state's accounting system allows us to use this word called encumbrance. And so we encumbered last year's funds for $2.4 million that went to RCOH. They also allowed us to have a $392,000 encumbrance for attorney's fees that now has a balance of $255,000 left. And then for community meetings, approximately like $90,000, which we'll be using in this next month. But all of those funds come from the fiscal year 2025 appropriations and allotment. So we start this year with $14 million, and right now we have spent $48,000 in operations. We will be coming to the board next month with a proposed budget that we see that we'll show you how we would be allocating the $14 million. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. We're gonna move to item 8, Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship. Greg, operational update.
Thank you, John, and hello, everyone, once again. We have a couple of items that are carryover items from either July 10th board meeting that require action here today. I'll briefly go over them. You have all of the materials. There was a more detailed briefing provided at the July meeting. And I think we have a couple of photos that we can pull up, please. Thank you. The first item is the IRTF geophysical testing project. The IRTF facility is experiencing erosion on the site, which is starting to get to be an issue that needs to be addressed. This is a photo of the building, and you can see there in the center, down below the corner of the building, where some of the erosion is.
Thank you,
Around the building is the access to, you see a door, a big door in the back of the building. That's how they remove and deliver equipment and supplies and whatnot required for their operations. And so access to that back side of the building is now being compromised because of some of this erosion that's occurring on the pad surrounding the building itself. The proposal is to conduct some geotechnical testing, essentially doing 2 core borings. If you could go to the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Apologies for the blurriness, but 2 core borings indicated there by the numbers B1 and B2, the purpose of which is to try to ascertain the substrate composition so that they can come up with a better plan for how to mitigate the erosion that's occurring on their site. The The borings would be 4 to 6 inches in diameter and approximately 15 feet deep, or until they cannot bore any deeper. Under the Conservation District Administrative Rules, Chapter 13.5.22, this project is considered a form of data collection. And so does require a site plan approval from the Conservation and Coastal Lands Office, OCCL. Therefore, this is classified under our scheme as a Type B project, and that's why we're bringing it forward for review. We did review it with our Environment Committee, who provided some input. They wanted to make sure that the geotechnical contractor would also be looking at other possible causes of the erosion, such as drainage off the top of the pad. The contractor will be looking at that and making recommendations on the proper erosion mitigation that should be done. Environment Committee also asked whether the boreholes would be filled with the original materials once the materials were analyzed. And that's our standard practice. So they will be filled with the original material. And then they had also made a suggestion that one of our Environment Committee members, Dr. Don Thomas, who's a geochemist and hydrologist, perhaps be allowed to take a look at the samples for some of his research. We did contact Dr. Thomas, and he related that given the shallow depth of the cores, it would not likely yield unique information that he doesn't already have, so he declined the offer. We did consult with Kahukumana on the project. They asked for a clarification on whether the project would extend the lifespan of the facility. IRTF explained no, it would not extend its lifespan. This is a maintenance issue that allows them to remain operational until their 2033 lease termination date. They also wanted to know a little bit more about the purposes of the actual coring itself. And once they understood that, they noted that they felt that this information would be useful for CMS throughout the region to understand the substrate composition of the area, because we are experiencing erosion in other areas as well. The Mauna Kea Management Board reviewed the project as well, and they expressed no concerns or objections and approved it unanimously. So we're recommending approval of this project. Once they understand the results of the study, then they'll have a better idea of how to bring forward a future proposal for an actual mitigation of their erosion issues.
So our staff has reviewed it and has recommended approval. Support. Any question? I'm gonna, because it's action required, I'm gonna take back this item just for me at this point. Any questions? If not, if I could remember, this is just test samples so that they can figure out what they can do, right? And the test samples will be returned back into the holes that they drill. If there are no questions, if I could get a motion to approve the IRTF geophysical testing project as just reviewed by Greg Chun.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor, aye, or yeah, raise your hand, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Thank you. Greg, the next debris removal plan.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate the approval. The next item also was reviewed at your July meeting, but quickly, boy, and I think we have a couple of photos as well. Under our comprehensive management plan, there is a management action that requires us to develop what's called a debris monitoring plan. This is the purpose of which is to ensure we have in place a set of ongoing practices where we focus on managing any debris that can accumulate, particularly from human activities, primarily through the visitors, from the visitors and recreational users of Mauna Kea. The plan has several components, but just to briefly kind of provide an overview, this map here, which is part of the proposal package, gives you an overall view of the areas that would be monitored on a regular basis by our staff. This includes the access road, trails, and observatory buffers around the observatories. You will note that we have included in this plan debris monitoring for lands that we are currently not responsible for. Then that's that pie-shaped area that is part of the natural area reserve. That's the where the trail that goes out to Lake Waiau actually traverses. We feel because we are the ones basically on the mountain that we have a responsibility to look after all of the lands, whether they're part of our leased lands or not. So these areas are monitored regularly, and we needed to put in place an actual formal plan to complete this action item under our CMP. The next photo, Puaena, is a little bit close-up of the astronomy areas themselves. The observatories themselves are responsible for maintaining and managing debris, rubbish on their sites. Our rangers provide or conduct biannual inspections of all the facilities to ensure that they're in compliance with various conditions, including managing their waste. So this is just a close-up of some of the areas in the astronomy precincts itself that would be included in the monitoring plan. Puaena, could you show the next slide? Yeah, thank you. And this is the areas around the Halepohaku facility itself that are monitored on a regular basis. The monitoring actually involves all of our staff as well as observatory staff. Our MKSS staff, our shared services staff, conduct daily sweeps of the visitor information station public areas and facilities. They conduct weekly sweeps outside of Halepohaku in the utilities area, along with the parking lots, the vegetated areas, and the lower gravel parking lot. Semi-monthly, our utilities crew actually tows a magnetized bar on the lower unpaved road that goes to the access to collect metal fragments. They also clear areas around the observatories on request. The rangers conduct routine monitoring during their patrols. We actually have regular patrols where they get out of their vehicles and actually walk sections of the road and around the trails, etc., where they collect trash. They record the collected trash, noting the debris type, quantity, and comments if any. They'll put those in their reports as well. They also, as I mentioned, conduct biannual inspections of the facilities. The observatories themselves are responsible for their leased areas, and they must remove all debris within a 25-yard perimeter of their facility. So once again, this is not a project per se, but it is an element or component of our comprehensive management plan. So we did feel it was appropriate for all of our groups to actually review this and approve this. This will then be incorporated into the CMP as part of our adaptive management philosophy. A recommendation is approval of this plan.
Thank you, Greg. Before I open it up for questions, I'm going to call on Bill Stormont, who did on our behalf in-depth review of the plan.
Thanks, Chair. Members of the authority, I have reviewed the plan. I find it robust and it ties closely to the management actions specified in the comprehensive management plans. I think that it's a thoughtful approach. I know that I have seen that the rangers are doing the road maintenance, road checks, by the way, and the recommendations are sound. I was particularly happy to see it address working with the Department of Defense and going after and trying to retrieve a lot of material that's up on the mountain from previous mishaps that the military has caused. And so there the remains of wreckage of military helicopters and such on the mountain. So I would endorse the plan and recommend that it be passed as well.
Questions, comments?
I do have a question. So I think it's a great idea that the Rangers have been very proactive in making sure that Lake Royale, for example, and significant places are cared for. But I just am curious about, and maybe Ryan, this is something for you to consider in your role as deputy director, because that is clearly within the DLNR Kuleana, right? And outside of the areas that are designated under the lease agreement or control of the university, and then subsequently MKSOA. From the very beginning, for those of us who were served on the working group, which is the predecessor of MKSOA, Bonnie was on that, as well as Lanakila and Rich and I. We discussed at length having the land area that falls under the kuleana of an entity like MKSOA to be a little bit more holistic, if that's the right word, as the approach to the Mauna was concerned, as opposed to using TMKs which draw lines, like this, because we felt, just like CMS is saying to us right now, those are important features, important areas. We do have staff up there, or they do have staff, which eventually will become our staff, who can serve in areas. I know they do a lot of emergency services up there, right? Just helping visitors who run into trouble no matter where they are on the Mauna. And as community people, we're very concerned about that space that we're looking at right now across the street where the pu'us are, where visitors to the Mauna, mostly off-island visitors, spend a lot of time just walking all over the pu'us without control. So I just wondered how this is going to play into that larger picture of what kind of area, or what should the area be, that eventually could become part of the MKSOA Kuleana, so that the Mauna is taken care of properly. We have this great charge. I think a lot of community just assumes that means we malama all of these important spaces up at the top side of the Mauna. So I just want to make sure that when we are adopting plans like this, which already kind of crosses the line outside of the boundaries that exist, that there is some vehicle for that. Like, does that mean, Ryan, we should, or CMS, and eventually us, if we were to adopt this plan or similar plan, should have a working agreement or some sort of legal agreement with DLNR that yes, this is something we should be doing, or is expected or wanted, as opposed to something that we think we should be doing, or CMS should be doing. So I just, want to raise that issue.
Oh, no, that's a good point because when I was there for our site visit, I know exactly what you're talking about. Come sunset, there's all those people trailing up the pu'u like ants to the top. And that's within our jurisdiction of Ilamar across the street. And Greg could probably speak to it more, but there are those cooperative management structures that we have already in place with CMS that probably will need to carry over when during the transition period, post-transition period. I'm not sure if they're formalized or not, but I know that there is that cooperative like management that provides that holistic type of both management and enforcement.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question and point, Noi, that you're pointing out. My recommendation would be some kind of memorandum of agreement or understanding between the agencies on managing this. I think part of the issue in the past has been getting clear on how some of these things might get paid for, quite frankly. And so we've not chosen to pursue that with any vigor and have just sort of operated on a handshake deal at this point. But I do think that would be a wise thing for MKSOA to pursue, definitely.
All right, so let's keep that point in mind and start exploring what avenue best addresses the concern that was raised by member Wong Wilson. Okay. With that, any other questions or concerns about the debris removal plan? If not, can I get a motion to approve the debris removal plan as presented by Executive Director Chan?
You asking for a motion?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I move we adopt or approve this plan, notwithstanding the concern that I raised, and so, yeah.
Okay, can I get a second? Okay, my second. Anxiety. Whoa,
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
I think that's a second. That's
Oh, second
two.
too. Oh, I thought he was making Japanese cookies. Just first. All right. Any further discussion? Any further questions? If not, all in favor, aye, or raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Greg, Gemini ladder replacement and VLBA weather insurance.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, these two projects are information only. There's no action required, but we're bringing them forward just so you folks are aware of some of the breadth of things that we review on a regular basis. Both of these are Type A projects. The first one is a Gemini North ladder replacement. Gwen, I think we had some photos of the project itself in a brief description. Essentially, what Gemini is wanting to do is there's a ladder outside an access door that you see there that they want to replace with a newer model, and the model will actually be attached to the wall that you see there, and be raised a little bit above the ground as well. This would allow safer and easier access through that doorway there. This project is actually a minor project. We classified it as a minor project, and we were going to seek a conservation a site plan approval, but a concurrence letter, excuse me. But we were advised by OCCL when they came up to visit us last week that this project did not require their notification, review, or approval. But by that time, this project was already undergoing our regular committee review process pursuant to our own policies. So we we decided to just keep it in here. It's a pretty simple, as you can see, straightforward swap out of an existing ladder. If there are any issues or concerns or questions that you'd like us to include and provide feedback to Gemini on, we can certainly do that.
Any questions?
Otherwise, yeah, no action required.
Yeah. Any questions about the ladder? Not going to the VLBA weather instrument upgrade?
Yeah, this is a like for like or near like for like replacement. VLBA has a outdoor weather instrumentation that they use for a variety of purposes. The replacement requires replacing the existing bar that you see there. The top photo is the existing, the bottom photo is the replacement. Replace the bar itself along with the instrument and the tower junction assembly. And they would also be replacing some hardware in the existing panel box that is at the base of the tower. The current equipment is obsolete and difficult to maintain, so they want to replace it with newer model equipment. This is a like-to-like type of replacement under CL Conservation District rules. So we'll be seeking a concurrence letter from them on this one. But if there are any conditions or any observations you'd like us to relate to VLBA or include in the application or in the concurrence letter, we can do that.
Okay, any questions, concerns? Not? Thank you, Greg. I'll turn it back to Executive DeFries to go over, or maybe, I don't know if it goes to you, Greg, but JMC.
Let me start, Greg, on this end. Item B1, as board members, you should anticipate receiving from me in advance of next month's meeting, recommendations on what cost sharing might look like between CMS and our authority for each of the fiscal years 26 and 27. Greg and I have had a running conversation that preceded the adjournment of the legislature, that preceded the announced budget reductions from the National Science Foundation, and we'll come back to you as a board with recommendations on how a cost-sharing formula might work, which will require your approval. I'll leave it at that. Greg, you want to add to that topic?
No, I think the only thing I would emphasize is or reiterate is our appreciation for the conversation that Executive Director DeFries actually brought up prior to any of these funding issues arising. We were already talking about this idea in the spirit of joint management, so I do appreciate that. And look forward to discussing the formal proposal once we're ready to bring that forward.
Thank you. Any questions on that topic? Again, we can get into it deeper at next month's session. On the 7th of August, John Komeiji and I were asked to appear at a Board of Regents committee meeting because their August meeting is slated to take place on the island of Maui. And so we took the opportunity. The committee meeting was well attended by regents. I want to ask Greg to start on it because we did not stay for the full meeting, but the upshot of it and the takeaway was I thought it was a very productive meeting. I thought Chair Komeiji established a foundation about the fact that the authority has its own governance structure, approval structure, as does the University of Hawaii. And making that distinction, I thought, was helpful and resulted in what I thought was a very constructive recommendation. But I'll go to Greg, and Greg, at some point, if the board doesn't have any questions, we can also refer to Regent Miyahiro for his comments as well. Greg?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so CMS actually had two items on this agenda. This was actually the Committee on Institutional Success, and what CMS is required to do is to do an annual report to the Board of Regents on the status of various things, including the transition process. So that was one of the items we had on the agenda. The second item that we had on the agenda was the commercial tour operator fee proposal, which was a separate item that the committee needed to review in order to make a recommendation to the full board for approval. So on the first item, as I said, we do an annual report to the regents. Even though this was a committee meeting, all of the regents are invited, and many of them were there in attendance. I reviewed a lot of the material that we reviewed with DLNR in terms of the significant accomplishments for the year and that sort of thing. About halfway through the presentation, however, Chair Akitaki asked if we could sort of forego some of that review and more quickly focus on the issues around the MKSOA transition, UH and MKSOA transition. So we did discuss that. I've provided them an overview of the work that we are doing through the Joint Management Committee. And some of the projects and whatnot, the issues that have been decided, are under discussion, have been reviewed, that sort of thing. And then we talked a little bit from the perspective of some of the things that we continue to are working on with John and his team in terms of facilitating that process and supporting the process. And at which point the discussion moved towards a report or the comments by Chair Kumeji and Executive Director DeFries directly. This is a slide that was provided as part of their materials. This is the slide that the project plan, project map slide that you folks have put together and are beginning to utilize. So this obviously served as kind of a backdrop to a lot of the discussion that occurred. After hearing from myself and a little bit from John and John, I think there was a great deal of interest in ensuring by the regents, ensuring that respective organizational authorities and jurisdictions are going to be cared for and addressed and ensured as needed as the whole transition process goes about. There was particular interest by some of our regents in wanting to make sure that any legal obligations and how those legal obligations on behalf of the university are being addressed in the transition process, that they have a opportunity to be part of that as well. And so that led to the idea of forming a permitted interaction group at the regents level that could then meet jointly with a permitted interaction group from MKSOA. And in addition, the idea included a permitted interaction group being formulated at the land board level, where the three agencies, the the folks in charge of making decisions about policy and governance, and who ultimately have the legal obligations, can discuss and make sure that the transition process is addressing all of the legal and jurisdictional issues and obligations that the various agencies have. So that was the recommendation that came out of that whole discussion. I believe Chair Komeiji is in support of this. I know that the regents are in support of this. I'll turn it over to Regent Miyahira.
Greg, Greg, one point first, just to make the authority distinction, because Chair Komeiji and I were at the podium when this exchange happened, so what I want to do is make a distinction between the authority and then what became the business of the regents in taking that action. So, Chair Komeiji?
So, I agree with everything Greg said in terms of the summary of the meeting. So the purpose of these various pigs, the immediate purpose is, we've identified some issues regarding the CBUPs. We've identified some issues regarding how land will be transferred. So the idea is that these are policy type decisions that need to be made by the legislature ultimately. So the idea is to create a Board of Regents pig, a pig from MKSOA, and a pig from DLNR to see a BLNR, to see whether or not we can work together to have a sort of a unified work through and discuss and have a unified position that we can present to the legislature. That's the first order of business. So what happened was that they made that recommendation. I thought that was a good process for us to engage in, to see whether or not we can have a unified position. So the regents, because it was a committee meeting, were not in a position to create their pig at that meeting, but a motion was passed to recommend that the next regents meeting that the chair appoint a pig to do what we're saying. And if you look at the next item, I'm recommending that we create a pig on our own to start the process to meet with the University of Hawaii. So that's sort of the genesis of what we had to say. So I would.
Okay, and it should be known that both Chair Komeiji and I left the room prior to, so our knowledge of the process to get to a Board of Regents pig, we were not there at the time. So I think I'll turn it over to Mike, who to the degree that you can share with us what happened and your thoughts about it, please, at this time.
Thanks, John. I just want to reaffirm what Executive Director Chun shared with you folks. I think we are interested in seeing what we can do to work cooperatively with MKSOA as well as BLNR to present a package to the ledge of any needed amendments to Act 255 that will help us expedite the transfer of all the agreements, leases, and so forth as well. And so it's on our agenda. It will be on our agenda for our board meeting next week. And we fully intend to engage and help as best we can.
Appreciate that. Any questions, comments? I think from an operating level, both Greg and I left that meeting and this course of action feeling that it would be very supportive to our efforts on the ground. So thank you for that.
Thank you folks also.
Okay, one question. So there's general agreement on the project map, where everything is.
This is our project. No, this is our project map.
That's our project.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We weren't seeking any approval or comment. We just presented it to let them know that we have a project map.
From my standpoint, it helps to have this in our face all the time. So
Yeah.
we kind of know what's coming and whether we can do variance reporting as to whether we're on time or ahead of plan, so we know, we're not surprised by it.
Okay.
With that, let's transition to the next, because it's tied to what we just talked about, right? Number 9 on our formation of permitted interaction group. So this pig is the pig that we just talked about, to create a pig that would interface with a pig created by the Board of Regents and another pig hopefully created by the BLNR to come to this, hopefully, joint position, I guess, or joint submission to the legislature. So I've made a recommendation of 2 members of this pig. We have 1 space that we can use for another member of the authority. If someone desires to be part of this pig. So I open it up for any volunteers if someone wants to become part of this pig. Hearing none, I would ask for a motion then to create a pig to investigate. Let me just say that we intentionally made the description of the pig somewhat broad, right? Because we don't know exactly where we're gonna, this discussion will take us. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to form a permitted interaction group to investigate the transition between CMS and MKSOA, with the members being myself as chair, members Noinoi Wong Wilson, Rich Matsuda, and Neil Hannes as the other members. If we could have a motion.
So moved, as stated by the chair.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, item number 10,
Before you move,
oh, I'm sorry, Kaliwa.
sorry, it's Ryan. Just before you move on, so on the BLNR side, this hasn't been broached yet. So
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll bring it up with Chair.
So we just had the meeting, I think last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we realized at some point that having just so you can express, having a 2-party UH and MKSOA doesn't quite encompass the universe of stakeholders, right? So that's why they suggested that the BLNR do the same. Thank you.
Okay, item number 10, we've invited Director Doug Simons from the Institute for Astronomy to provide an overview of the process, timetable, and any other relevant issues related to forthcoming sublease renewals. So Doug?
Hello, John. I want to be mindful of everybody's time, and I'm now probably between everybody's lunch and other meetings. 2 ways to approach. I'm happy to give the presentation. If folks would just want to ask me questions about the material, I'm fine with doing that as well. It's at your discretion. I just want to see we've lost Bonnie. Lana Keela had to leave as well. How would you like me to proceed?
Any question? Doug, did you have any, the graphic about the timeline?
Yeah, I've got the whole presentation queued up.
Let's go through the presentation.
Let's go through it, yeah. We're good on time.
All right. I think I've got share access here. Okay, you should be able to see full screen now. I've got about a dozen or so slides. And just a little background, I was in this chair, I think, a week ago when Executive Director DeFries gave me a call and asked me to basically provide a summary of the steps that are associated with lease renewal. And thinking about it a little bit, John, you and I met a few weeks ago, and I took a little deeper dive in that conversation with you, and it occurred to me that I've been kind of living, eating and breathing this stuff for over a decade. So take for granted some of these details. So the intent of this really is to give you all a sense of what was done before Act 255 took place. Some of this is relevant to future negotiations, some not. But it'll give you an idea, at least what some of the sort of programmatic and practical issues of conducting these negotiations includes. And I do my best to provide subliminal messages through various pictures that I've taken, including recent ones of just some gorgeous hina in a patch that's about 3 miles in on R1 that I actually visited last Sunday with my 2000 Tundra, a thermos of coffee, and watched a spectacular sunrise with those gorgeous plants. This presentation is really just an extract of a more comprehensive presentation called Current State of Mauna Kea Astronomy. And there's a little YouTube link there. If you have an hour to kill, you can watch that. It goes over much more information, including background, history, finance, etc. I gave that presentation originally at the request of the Mauna Kea Management Board. Did not realize who was on Zoom. There are only about a half a dozen of us in the library at the IFA. And that in turn led to multiple requests, mostly from chambers and HLPC, to give that presentation. One of them was recorded though. But I'm just going to focus on the lease negotiation bit of that presentation today. And an overarching theme that you'll see is how complex it is, multilateral, and importantly, it's a multinational process that I have visibility into. Rich certainly does. Greg Chun was part of this earlier as well. But most folks do not. So hopefully I can give you a little better appreciation for some of these steps that are involved. This is a slide set that I showed about 5 years ago when I was director of Canada France Hawaii Telescope, actually to the CFHT board for the first time. And I was growing concerned that at the turn of the decade and with the 2033 expiration of all the leases potentially, we're setting up what's kind of calling a domino theory for the observatories. And that's one of my early renditions of a chart that I'll show at the end of the slide deck showing master lease timings. I won't go through all the details, but we have the CSO decommissioning, which is super complicated and ongoing at that point. And you see there, like fourth slide, the last bullet, eventually a tipping point is reached through what could be a snowball effect. Remaining MKOs all submit their notice of intent in fairly rapid succession. Astronomy. The concern being that as we continue to lose observatories, the remaining ones need to pick up the slack in terms of shared costs, and you can essentially overrun their ability to maintain financially the shared costs going forward. And then finally, my slide here, now what should we do? This is why it's an overwhelming priority. Those who are in a position to ensure a future for Mauna Kea astronomy must do so by the first half of the next decade, which is right now, more or less. So I tried to capture what I call some assumptions and boundary conditions in this slide set. These are slides that actually date back to when, again, I was at CFHT and trying to set up this whole process to the extent that I could. As a reminder, all the observatories are legally bound to complete their decom processes and site restoration by the end of 2033 without new land authorization in place. So you do the math, assume it's about 5 years to do a decom, and that's probably optimistic if we were actually pulling all of them off the mountain and infrastructure at the same time. Let's just say it's 5 years. Then we're about 3 to 4 years out now from the existing observatories to basically be, forced into the conundrum of rolling the dice on getting new leases and therefore being in violation of their legal commitments to decom. I want to point out the existing general lease and leases remain in effect until the new leases are granted by the authority. I often hear, what are the options in terms of extension? There's certainly precedent for 1 year revocable extensions. I find that a very troubling approach that really puts the squeeze on the observatories to be able to make the long-term commitments, the long-term upgrades to instrumentation, et cetera, which generally take 5 to 10 years to actually execute. In fact, we're already effectively in that window right now. And as I think everybody's aware, the overarching, sort of goal that I think we all have is a recognition that the future of Hawaii astronomy really is in our local community's hands. And it's up to our community to decide if they want to go forward with this or not on Mauna Kea. And if they do, we've all got to roll our sleeves up, as I know we already are. That's going to take a lot of communication, a lot of engagement, a lot of thoughtful planning on everybody's part. And I'm certainly able, willing, and been trying to do that on my part as well. So this is not new for me. This story starts back in the end of 2014 with a prep notice for an EIS that carried forward into 2015 as well, but was actually paused for several years by then Governor Ige and his 10-point plan. That was in response to the protests on Mauna Kea in the spring and summer of 2015. So that was about a 3-year pause in the EIS process. And when it resumed back in 2018, that's when the observatory started to talk amongst themselves in terms of essentially negotiation points, what should be terms and what would the observatory's perspective be on those terms. That carried on for a bit, for a couple of years, but that too was paused as a result of the 2019 TMT protests, and then COVID basically shut everything down for a couple of years. So this has been in my world going on for, like I said, essentially over a decade at this point, with a lot of starts and stops for various reasons along the road. So we restarted the process in early 2021. COVID was still there, but we felt we could go ahead and get going again. Essentially what happened was the observatories were conducting their own internal discussions, and UH was conducting their discussions in parallel. And in mid-21, we decided that that process has kind of run its course, and created what's essentially a superset of proposed draft terms. You see there on the right, what we call the term sheets between university and the observatories, essentially to decide what we're going to talk about and what needs to be negotiated in the process going forward. And I fully expect something similar to that will be needed between the observatories and the authority in the future. So kind of rolled up in bullet form, everything from literally the legal form of agreement to how shared services will be costed and managed, decommissioning commitments, observing time, et cetera. These are all the things we identified at that point back in 2021 that needed to be negotiated. And a question for the authority to think about down the road is, what terms do you all foresee being needed to be negotiated? Bear in mind, as I'll make a point here in a couple of slides, there's a whole level of discussion involving international funders that have to be pulled into this conversation. How does the authority want to engage the process, and who will be involved within that negotiation? So back to a pretty picture of mamani trees that I took a couple of years ago while I was upland game bird hunting in the slopes of the east side of Mauna Kea that I really liked. So this slide right here, the inset, that's a slide that I produced back in September 2021. So it's been, I guess, about the time I started as IFA director. And essentially what I did there was to, if you look at my pointer, lay out all those terms in about a 1.5-year timeline to try and organize the negotiations. So we start off at a kickoff meeting, and then once a month, I was trying to pull reps from all the observatories. We had a bunch of legal counsel there. We had reps from National Science Foundation there as well, to sequentially work our way through these negotiations. And I just want to leave you with a sense of how much work it was to go through this 18-month process. Color-coded purple is where we felt we needed more input from the community. We spun off subgroups in between the monthly meetings to take deeper dives into the issues and come back in subsequent meetings. There's a lot of crosstalk between these various topics as we marched our way left to right across this chart. So key point, very complicated process to be able to negotiate what we felt was a reasonable and balanced set of terms between the university and the observatories that in that setting took about 18 months. I call this a just-in-time schedule because if you sort of match that negotiation process up where other parts of the planning documents were being developed by UH at the time. So the master plan, CMP update, and EIS were basically all stacked up in a gigantic sort of Gantt chart or Microsoft project plan and synchronized to the extent that we could with these MKOUH negotiations, ultimately for either Board of Region approval and or land board approval, to basically bring in to the land board a package, if you will, of terms and conditions and planning documents, et cetera, for sort of consolidated consideration. And we fully expected at that point that we'd go into a contested case and a litigation phase thereafter. And just to sort of calibrate this, we have a governor around this point in time as well at the end of 2022, who would in fact be Governor Green. I was mostly at Canada-France Hawaiʻi Telescope throughout all this process over here. I plead guilty to being an equal opportunity pest, be it to the university, the authority, to whomever, about the need for timely discussions because of just the sheer volume of work that's required to get through all of these conversations, discussions, the legalities, getting everything queued up in a formal sense. This is one of the more important slides to share. Rich and I have direct visibility into this. This is a subset logos of the international funders, ranging from France with CNRS to the National Research Council, which is kind of the analog to the National Science Foundation, US, of course, UH, Harvard, Asia A, which is in Taiwan, et cetera. So all of these funders need to be consulted, and there has to be time for an iteration with all of them and whatever the terms are that emerge out of this whole negotiation. So there's a layer on top of that timeline I showed you that has to be factored into all of this. And we were just getting into those discussions with the international funders when basically everything halted with the adoption of Act 255. And this is the last slide. It's a slide I generated a couple of years ago. A lot of you have seen it before. I tried to just sort of capture over the course of this decade key milestones associated with the adoption of MKSOA, Act 255, the transition period. Here's the 5-year period itself. The mid-2028 point, which is the earliest at which new leases can be offered, assuming all the conditions have been met within the authority and the negotiations have been completed as well to allow that. Very importantly, there's a step in here associated with determining how many observatories would be allowed to go beyond 2033. I call it a TBD process. And I've been advocating that process should be essentially one of what I call self-selection based upon the terms and particularly the price for new leases, including rent, whatever sort of upfront infrastructure support costs that are associated with it, et cetera, et cetera. And until we have a clarity on the number of observatories that will be allowed to go forward beyond 2033, the shared costs, which are split across all the observatories, are unknown because we simply don't know how to spread them out across an unknown number of telescopes. So that really gets you back to the basic question that I and others would be asked with the funding agencies. The first thing they want to know is how much is it going to cost to operate an observatory beyond 2033? And if we don't know the answer to how much a lease is going to cost, the process is basically stalled. So you go to the right a little bit. We have the lease negotiations, assuming we get through that in a timely manner. And then with new leases at the very soonest being issued mid-2028, I fully expected contested cases, and I've notionally assigned, say, a year to that. In the TMT case, it took a couple of years, even with the fast track process for the state Supreme Court, to have this legally vetted. So about 3 years after leases are issued, we've still got to go through the whole legal vetting process, basically. And the conundrum I pointed out many times, including back in the sort of latter part of the previous decade, was the likelihood that we would have leases being either unavailable or being legally challenged at the same time that the observatories need to decide about whether or not they are going to submit their notices of intent to decom, again, to meet those legal requirements to have their facilities off the summit by the end of 2033. I do not have a solution for this. I showed this to the legislators that were talked about earlier, what is Monday or so ago. Showed to the region, showed a lot of people. All I can do sort of in my capacity within the IFA is to point out the conundrum and ask everybody to, put on their thinking caps or whatever to try and help resolve the challenge that's shown in the right-hand side of this timeline. Okay, so final shot, beautiful shot with the moon there. Here's Orion, it looks like, up right here towards what we call sub-millimeter valley up on the summit of Mount Ikea. So I'm going to stop share and I'm happy to take questions.
Questions, members?
Went kind of fast, but you've got the material. And if you want to talk about any of that in more depth, I'm happy to do that. Just view me as a resource, basically,
Thanks for the presentation, and there will be future opportunities to get deeper in it. I think what was important about today, from our perspective at the operating level, was when a governor inserts himself into the process, there's a level of kind of urgency and seriousness that his office brings to it. So it was really timely for you to get this in front of our board, and you'll be back here in future meetings as well.
I really appreciate that.
Yes, yeah, thank you for your presentation. I feel a little bit like I'm sipping from a fire hose because it's not new for me here.
Sorry, Neil, but it kind of feels like a fire hose in my end too.
So I hope I asked the right questions here. I've never negotiated an observatory lease, but I've negotiated a lot of leases in my time. And when it's a renewal of lease, oftentimes you look at something that encapsulates the performance of the lessee during the initial period. Do you have a benefits kind of report from your various observatories that indicate whether they complied with their lease terms, during the life of their lease, the benefits did they deliver the benefits and the promises that were made as they undertook the lease and so forth? I think from a lessor's standpoint, if you or whoever the lessor is in this, it would be good to look at the past record of performance as part of it as we contemplate the future. So let's that's one question. Let's let you answer that, and then I'll go to the second question.
That's a great idea, and I'm sure the observatories would be happy to be able to articulate a long and I think very successful track record, not just met or satisfying leases, but lease terms, but of the various contributions that have been made over the years, be it scientifically, financially, educationally, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a great idea, Neil.
I'd be keen to see it. I hope the other authority members would as well. Now, secondly, then as we look to the future, the old saying about, where's the puck going to be? I think the indicators, the foretelling of that, it was in the passage of Act 255, and in the work we've done in our 2 years of existence, the development of a strategic framework, the work you can see we're doing in the community. As you look at that and observe that body of work, how do you think that's going to change? And I know it's our job to do it, but I mean, you're a counterparty to this. How do you think that'll be? What lease terms do you think are going to be necessitated in order to go where we're going? It's not a very clearly expressed question, but I hope you get it. That I'm trying to figure out. We're all trying to figure out how to really fulfill the mandate of Act 255, and not only in terms of visionary and aspirational statements, but in terms of actual decision making about your leases, about commercial activities, about everything that's going on the mountain.
That's right, and Greg's done a good job of showing how interconnected the various funding streams are, the CMS component, the education component, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why I suggested the very first step, at least in my mind, is to sit down and discuss what is important that we commit to within these new agreements. And that's why I listed the 10 or 12 or so. That took a long time to just sort of introspectively figure out what was really important to get codified going into the future. So this is just the world according to Doug. So let me put a preface. I would like Neil to see, for example, because I'm a huge advocate of education and local schools, non-K scholars, et cetera. I'd like to see a dedicated portion of observing time in the future going to local students, not just to Institute for Astronomy, but for the benefit of high school kids all across the state, as an example of things that I think could be different. I think there's a whole package, community benefit package, whatever you want to call it, that we talked about within the observatories that I'm eager to begin discussions with the authority as well. And that kind of multilateral types of engagement possible through that. There's the whole issue of rent. The observatories are fully anticipating paying rent. We have to have a sustainable model, I guess is how I would capture it, Neil. Sustainable in a sociological sense, a cultural sense, environmental, financial sense, scientific. You have to put the whole package together, right? And it has to be fair, balanced, and reasonable. So for me, that's kind of the reality check. As I went through this process, you can go down kind of rabbit holes in these negotiations and find now you're focused on something that actually, seems important at times, but it's not a big picture thing. So I want to collectively identify a solution that when you step back from, it looks like it's a fair arrangement from all sides, if at all possible. That's a very roundabout way of trying to answer your question. And it's just kind of my personal philosophy, having been in the weeds of trying to do these negotiations in the past.
I think I appreciate your philosophy, and I thank you for sharing it. And I think the more we kind of, it's not like we're sitting at a table yet, we're reviewing these terms, but the more we prepare ourselves to be at that table, I think the quicker it'll go, because you can anticipate. I think we're still trying to get our head around ourselves, but we're keeping our hand all the time in these community meetings and in these authority meetings about where we're headed. And at some point, especially now that we have a management consultant on board, we can kind of translate that into terms and conditions and criteria and so forth. So we'll be working hard on that, rest assured, but the more you can kind of track us, and you'll be ready for when it happens.
Okay, that's a huge milestone, and congrats to the whole team with the SSFM contract. And you're absolutely right. The development of the MKSOA management planning documents, I think, is an essential component of, and it's part of the conversation of what should go into these leases in the future.
I'll just offer one final thought, and it's a single authority member, not necessarily the full authority, but as I kind of look at language differences, the nuances that they're in, from where we currently do, well, where we've done business in the past and where we're mandated to business under Act 255. Those things that you mentioned that are benefits, education, and so forth, are a little bit anthropocentric. And I think there's a greater demand to put the mauna first, and the physical, environmental functions, and health and condition of the mauna as a really prominent lens, and then kind of figure the other stuff out. But sometimes we put our human interests first, what we want to do for quest for knowledge or educational services or rent money or stewardship investment and so forth. We put that first and then figure out whether it was good for the mauna later.
Right.
I think there's a demand upon us to really kind of elevate the interests of that environmental feature, and then accommodate as best we can in a symbiotic way, other activities of humanity. So I don't know if that changes your thinking at all.
No, not at all. That's actually, we've discussed within the observatories what that that whole program would look like. And there's definitely an environmental component because we felt that there are multiple important interests in the Mauna, and a distributed approach in terms of what the observatories could provide that distributed community is the right approach. So again, I'm happy and eager to share the thinking going into the process, or actually it kind of came out of the process earlier as an example of where we left it. But I totally agree that it needs to be a sort of a multi-dimensional approach to supporting the mountain, and I think you'll find a lot of support for that idea within the observatories.
That's great to hear, and I thank you for entertaining my thoughts. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you, Neil. Any other questions or comments from the board? Doug, thanks again. Appreciate all the work, and this has been a really insightful. Rich, you have anything to add from you? Sure. Okay. All right. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks,
That
Doug.
concludes item number 10.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Doug. So important announcement. Our next meeting is going to be on September 11th. The important part of our announcement is that we're changed venues. We're going to move out of the DLNR. We're going to move to the IFA library. And the primary reason for moving to the IFA library is the configuration of the room and our ability to project. It's more conducive to a meeting such as ours as opposed to this having my back to Neil and all this other stuff. So we're going to move the next meeting on September 11th to the IFA library. So thanks to Doug for making the library and some of the audiovisual technical matters available to us. So thank you, Doug.
Happy to host you, and we also have a pretty good parking situation.
Yeah. We've been challenged with parking once in a while. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So as previously mentioned, our next committee meeting is on August 27th at 5 p.m. at the West Hawaiʻi Civic Center in Kona. So again, we're going to start polling members as to their availability to attend. If you haven't attended, it's really quite interesting to attend some of these meetings to really hear what the public has to say.
Chair, I have one comment. It was really kind of an oversight on an earlier item. The visit by the State House legislature that took place on Monday, I failed to include in the report that before we ascended the Mauna Kea Access Road, there was cultural protocol at Pu'uhuluhulu. And I wanted to thank Kaleo Pilago for taking the lead, but I also wanted to mahalo our own Po'ena An, who also performed the appropriate protocol before all of us ascended the road. So to both of them, my thanks. And I also want to acknowledge that staff member number 1, Po'ena An, is celebrating in the month of August his 2nd anniversary.
Wow.
Here at the authority.
That's fast.
Oh my
That's
God.
historic. That's historic.
That's sweet.
The longest together.
2 years you get a watch. No.
Wow.
2 years we watch you.
That's right.
I get to watch you do what?
2 years we watch you. Give him a telescope.
Hey, Chair Komije, to follow up with what Executive Director DeFries said, I just wanted to extend my gratitude and mahalo nui to the entirety of the work that has been presented today. All of the efforts that have been made to get us to this point is tremendous. Through the meeting, I've been looking back at all of our agendas for the past 3 years, and it's really quite amazing to see exactly where we are now. And that's because we've collectively decided to put Mauna Kea, Papa Kea, Mauna Awa Kea in the center of our collective universe. And because we put Mauna Kea in the center of our collective universe, though the work is definitely and seemingly long, but intentional, the efforts, the conversations through the example of this of the management team and the evaluation committee that's a part of that, that's quite huge. And so I just wanted to say again, mahalo nui to everybody for all of the efforts. Thank you to Greg and to Doug for joining us today and for continuing to give, offer, and guide based on the experience that you folks already have. The last thing that I did want to share is that I went into, of course, Kumulipo really quickly because Kepua Wakia comes from that. And so if it's okay, Chair, I'd like to share these couple lines. So hana o poe lehua I ke alo o Wakia, hana o ka po ino, hana o ka po maikai, hana o ka moa I ke kua o Wakia. And so what is really neat about this particular section or segment is that before all of these things, hana, there's this movement of energy in the form of the ocean. And the ocean is also, in this context, is also referencing the ocean that is within the ocean, the physical ocean, but also the ocean that stirs within us. Also more so the ocean that births kino of all kinds. And so I just, I again express my gratitude for the opportunity that we have to be in this space of Kekua Oakia, because that's exactly what it is we're going through this transformational process. And it takes time, it takes effort, more energy than we can even say, but so much gratitude. So mahalo, mahalo, mahalo.
I hereby adjourn the meeting without motion. Thank you. All right, thanks everybody. Mahalo.